Hi, folks. In the last several days, I've had conversations with a few different people that are looking at training for, in all these cases, it happen to be for a marathon coming up in the fall. It's the spring of 2019 while I record this. In all cases, we talked about where are they at, what does it take to have a successful marathon, etc. And it kind of bubbled down really for everybody into kind of the same three things. And that is that, first of all, you need to be running enough. Now, running enough varies by distance. Running enough for a 5K is a little bit different than running enough for a marathon. In these cases, we were talking about running enough for a marathon. Is that the first thing you got to be running enough? Then you've got to be able to run consistently. And then really the third thing is training. And a lot of people are looking for training to overcome inconsistency and not being able to run enough. And it really won't. So let's talk about those things because obviously they're all very related. So first of all, let's talk about running enough. Now, I'll give you what I have found some guidelines is what I think is kind of the minimum that you need to run for various events. It really varies a lot by individual, how naturally gifted you are, what other type of training you might do, your background, etc. But the bottom line is think about it like this. In all cases, your distance events love miles. There's a reason that the elites are doing 100, 120, 130, 140 miles a week when they train for a marathon. They're not just doing that because they have nothing better to do with their time. They're doing it because mileage really counts, so you want to be able to run enough. At least in my experience, in a half marathon, you probably need to be running at least 35 to 40 miles per week pretty consistently. Here comes that consistent word, in order for you to train for a half marathon. And for a full marathon, it needs to be 45 to 50 miles per week. And really, in both those cases, if you can do more, I think that's generally going to be better. It gets to be tough for more because we're not professional athletes. Most of us have other lives and there's other things going on. But generally speaking, and let's talk about the marathon, if you can't be running 45 to 50 miles per week, chances are you're going to struggle a little bit more in the marathon. So first, you've got to make sure that you're running enough. The next thing is you've got to be able to run consistently. And I find that that's a big problem for people. Now, I'm not saying that to be judgmental. But there's a lot of people who are inconsistent in what they're able to run. That makes a real big difference. So here's why. So the graph shows your fitness level and 6 weeks, because generally speaking, it takes right around 4 to 6 weeks, and 4 is kind of the sweet spot where it will level off of consistent training for your body to make an adaptation to kind of move you to the next level. Well, what happens is when you can't get those 4 to 6 weeks of consistent training, you don't get that same adaptation. So you're out, you get a couple consistent weeks, and then something comes up, whatever, and you miss some key runs. And then you ease back into it, and all of a sudden 4 weeks later, you're back into it. You never get those 4 to 6 weeks. Now, I realize that's a hard thing to do, and again, I'm not being judgmental, but I'm telling you the first thing you need to do for almost all your running is make sure that you are running enough, and the second thing you got to do is be able to run consistently, because then finally you get to training. And I made the comment that a lot of people look for training to overcome not being consistent and not running enough, and it's generally not going to do that. Those other two things are more important. So by training, what I mean, that's when you start doing specific speed work, you do tempo runs and things like that to try and really bump up and improve your fitness. As I said, they're all related. Let's go back. So, speed work, tempo runs, again, it's 4 to 6 weeks of doing those to create some type of adaptation. If you weren't consistent or weren't running enough, those things aren't really going to happen. So again, it's really kind of simple. If you want to be a better runner, first ask yourself, am I running enough? And if you're not, that's one of the first things you want to address. The next thing is, am I running consistently? Consistent doesn't mean you don't ever miss a run, but it means that that's an uncommon occurrence, that more often than not, you're going to be able to get the work done. And if you're running enough and you're running consistently, now when you train, you're going to get the best results.